Laura. I'm your host, Laura Hediger. And did you know, friends, that March is Women's History Month? Not only do we have International Women's Day coming up, but a week from right now is Working Women's Day. Shout out to Working Moms Day. There we go. Working Moms Day. Shout out to all the working moms out there. And if there's one thing I have learned since becoming a mom, all moms work all the time. Not only is it the best job in the world, it's also the hardest job in the world. So whether you do work inside of the home or outside of the home, shout out to all the women and the moms out there. We're going to talk about, though, for this entire episode, something that is very serious, and unfortunately, I don't think it's talked about enough in today's society. We're going to be talking about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety. I myself, when I was pregnant, so much focus was on that baby. Of course, in that initial postpartum time when you get home with that newborn, the focus again still on the baby. And sometimes I think moms don't get the focus that they need. And someone who knows that all too well is our guest for this hour. I'm very happy to be joined by Lindsay Aggarwal, a mom of two and a total boss babe. I hope it's okay that I call you that.
I mean, I guess I'll try to own it. I don't know that I'll own it enough, but I appreciate it.
Oh, girlfriend, you should own it because Lindsay's not going to brag on herself, so I will brag on her. She went to Vanderbilt undergrad. Go Vols. Gosh, I am messing everything up today.
Commodores.
Yes, I am so sorry. I had volunteer in my head because you were leading this big fundraiser.
Oh, there you
go.
Huh.
Go Commodores.
Yes.
Then you went to SLU.
SLU Law, yes.
Awesome. You are a partner at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner.
You've got it, yes. We can call it BCLP if that's easier, but yes, Bryan Cave, BCLP.
And the St. Louis Business Journal 40 Under 40.
Yeah.
Girl, you do it all.
Ooh, I don't know. I think to your point earlier, moms do it all, right?
Yes.
All moms do it all, do all the work, probably do enough jobs to count for 3 jobs. So
that is true.
I don't think I'm alone in that.
Let's talk about your life, Lindsay, before you became a mom. Please talk us through when you got the bug to be a lawyer, when you decided to get married, all of those things that led you up to the birth of your first child.
Sure. So I think I was always a pretty high-achieving kid. I don't know that I think that my parents put that on me, but I think I was just sort of, I wanted to have everything be perfect, right? So I went to a great undergrad school. I never really stopped to think about, whether I could achieve the next thing. It was just sort of, what's the next thing? And I know I can do it, right? So I decided to go to law school. My dad is a lawyer. And actually, I think he tried to talk my brother and I out of it, but we both became lawyers, maybe in spite of him. But I always really admired what he did. He was in the courtroom, and I thought that was the coolest thing. I loved To Kill a Mockingbird. I loved that idea. And so that sort of spurred me on into law school. Did well there and started right at Bryan Cave straight out of law school. I was a summer associate there back in 2012. And I would say, for a while really was just on sort of that standard upward trajectory, right? And around about 2015 is when I met my husband. We met online on Match.com, and I reached out to him. I saw his profile come across my feed and reached out to him, thought that we might be a good match. And I don't know if we knew maybe on the first day, but maybe by the second or the third date, I think we knew that we probably had something special together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, that, I think we were maybe married. We married in 2018, and then my son was born in April 2020. So
that's an interesting time to have a first baby.
It definitely was. It was weird kind of in all the ways that you might imagine. I do think I was maybe luckier than most at that time, most moms, because my husband is a pediatrician. He's a pediatric cardiologist. So at that time, the guidance was changing week by week. And they were talking about, would you be able to have a birthing partner or not, or things like that. And honestly, at some point I was worried, would I even be able to go to a hospital? So I do think I had it a little bit easier than most in that I, had someone in the home that I knew if worse came to worse would be able to take care of me and the baby.
So you deliver your son.
Yes.
About to be 6.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to him, and happy almost birthday to you.
Yes.
How was that postpartum experience with your son?
So I would say it was okay. It was, and I know we're going to talk about, I experienced postpartum depression after my second, but looking back, I think you always wonder, did I have an element of that then? And I think a lot of the struggles that I had, I brushed off as, everyone is struggling right now, right? So I struggled a lot with that his first birthday was not going to look like how I had anticipated. Just right, like all of these little milestones were so different than what I had thought. My parents didn't get to meet him for 2 weeks until after he was born. They met him through the window, things like that. And so I do think that I had, some feelings kind of going on in the midst of all that. But again, I think I was just sort of able to push that a little bit to the side, that everyone's struggling, the world's weird. And how lucky are we that he's healthy, we're healthy. So overall, I guess I would say it was okay. It was different than I expected, but once I came back to work with him, I think we kind of settled back probably into our normal life, our routine of 3.
And when did you go back to work?
So I went back to work, let's see, he was born April 21st, and I would have gone back to work early August. But when I say go back to work, I mean, I'm a lawyer, and at that point, we were not physically going back into the office, right? So I was working from home most of probably the first year that he was born. And he was at home with a nanny, and so, that was kind of its own kind of challenge. But at the same time, it was also nice. I got to be there for the little moments, and I got to see him more than I think I had expected.
So when did you go back to the office? Do you remember?
Yeah, that probably would have been sometime maybe March to May-ish of 2021.
Okay. So he's about to turn 1. You do go back to the office. And at this point, you're settling into life as a new mom in a pandemic with a very big career. Your husband has a very big career too. Did you feel like you were getting your footing?
I think that I did. I mean, I think that we struggled a little more than I expected probably, and that's not something that I had anticipated. It's not really something that I had thought to think through ahead of time. Now, when I, meet new moms, which I do quite a bit in my new role at the firm, I always sort of caution them to have those kinds of conversations before they have their child, to think through, who's going to take care of what, or just all of those little things that inevitably pile up once you have children. But I think we were mostly able to manage. I mean, my parents are close by, his parents are close by. Again, probably at that time period, there weren't as many social demands going on in the world. So, yeah, I think we were able to manage pretty well.
So you settle in, back in the office. Your son turns 1, then he turns 2. And I'm guessing around the time he turned 2, you find out you're pregnant again?
Yes, a couple months after, which we always knew that we wanted to give him a sibling if we could. So we were very excited, yes.
And what do you remember about being similar or different with the pregnancy of your first versus the pregnancy of a second when you have a 2-year-old at home? Little different, right?
I know. I always feel so bad because, my friends who are pregnant for the first time, I want to be very sympathetic. And I know how hard it is, but man, once you have that little toddler, you don't have any time to rest. And so the time that you were able to take in your first pregnancy when you were exhausted or didn't feel well or whatever's going on, that time is gone. And you have, at that point, a little human who has no idea why and has expected you to be their best friend and play with them. And so, yeah, it was exhausting. But also, my son was getting into the age where he sort of kind of began to understand he was getting a little sister, and he was really excited about it.
So then you go through the pregnancy, through the fall of 2022. You deliver your daughter a little early.
About a month early, yeah. She was a nice little surprise about a month early. My husband likes to say it was a benefit from a tax perspective.
Your husband and my husband would have a lot in common. I very much understand that. So she comes just before the start of 2023.
Yes.
What do you remember about that postpartum experience in those first few days and first few weeks?
Yeah, first few days and first few weeks, I would actually say I felt really, really good. I remember with both of my kids, they didn't gain weight all that quickly, so we had to go to the pediatrician a few times in that first week. And I remember with my daughter, Mia, I went by myself because my husband had to work, and so I went by myself maybe 3 days postpartum. I took her to the pediatrician, and I was just thinking, I could have never imagined doing this my first time around. And I felt like, when I was on my parental leave with her, I sort of had a better handle, right? You know a little bit more about kids. You know that if you put them down and take a shower, they will be okay. You know how to kind of take care of yourself a little bit more. So I felt really, really good, I would say, on my parental leave, maybe up until, I'd say, maybe a month or so before I kind of returned to work, which would have been, I guess, around maybe like the 4 to 5 month postpartum period.
And what starts happening around that time?
Yeah, I started just feeling, I would say, a lot more emotional than I had felt that first time around. And a theme of the story is going to be a lot of times I just brushed something off or minimized it. And so at that point it was, well, I'm feeling emotional because I'm physically going back to the office, which was different than my son. This is in all likelihood our last child. And so, just kind of brushing that aside. So not really any red warning flags at that point, just kind of, I think somewhat normal emotional feelings about going back to work.
And you go back to work. How is that transition?
Yeah, that transition was really rough. And again, brushing things aside, but came back to, so I'm a litigator. I do financial services litigation, came back to a really active caseload, which on the one hand was great. On the other hand, I was struggling to, kind of regain my footing. My daughter did not have consistent childcare yet, which I should have known better maybe as a second-time mom, but we knew that her daycare spot was coming. It was going to be in a couple months, and so we were kind of trying to patch it together. So just sort of dealing with that aspect while just, trying to field calls throughout the day, now trying to take care of the household for 2 kids. It just all just really, really started to pile up. And I think at the same time, my mental health just started to slip down and down and down.
And what did that look like?
Yeah, so at first, it looked like me just feeling really overwhelmed, I would say. Just feeling like I cannot do this. I am a bad lawyer. I'm a bad mom. I'm a bad wife, just all the things, right? And I just can't do this. And there's something wrong with me that I'm not able to make this work. Look around, everyone else can make this work. I think from there, sort of that kind of progressed to just really breaking down, honestly, multiple times per day. And then from that point, I think one of the hardest, stages, if you want to call it that, was I got to this point where I was functioning externally. So if you had seen me at work or if we had run into each other at the grocery store, you would have thought Lindsay's perfectly fine because I was using up, I like to think of it as like all of my mental energy to appear okay on the outside. And what that meant was at home, when I came home, I would just basically be done. And my husband and I talk now about, we have this one chair in our kitchen that's like the chair that I would just basically collapse in at the end of the day. And I did it because I wanted to physically be there with my family, but I was not there, right? I was not at all really mentally there. I was just kind of like checked out. And I think one of the scariest parts, at least for me, was I no longer felt like myself. So my friends who know me know that, like, I love holidays, I love birthdays, all those things. And when I thought about Mia's first birthday, her first Christmas, I had no interest in it. And yeah, around this time is when I eventually saw my daughter, my doctor, and I remember the notes from that visit said that Lindsay doesn't want to get up in the morning. She has no interest in anything. And that was, that kind of sums it up.
But thinking back, I'm guessing you had to be proactive about even getting that appointment, because something that I didn't know that I think maybe some viewers don't know is after you have a baby, you have the 6-week checkup, and you were told at that point, you are good to do anything. Go back to your normal life.
Yes.
And then at least for most women, they don't go back to the doctor until a year after that, just for their yearly checkup.
Right.
So did you actively seek out a doctor? Did your friends, did your family encourage this?
I did. So at some point, you're right. You go, to the 6-week checkup and you do that, I guess, little quiz, for lack of a better word. And as I mentioned, my husband's a doctor. And so, when I was starting to kind of feel all of this, he said, that's the Edinburgh postnatal scale, and it's available, online. And so I went through, I scored it, and I remember whatever my score was, it said high probability of major depression. And I just could not accept that. Like that phrase did not match how I felt about myself, who I thought I was. And so even with my husband, with, my mom, I think really, really minimized that. But when it just got, worse and worse, it was my husband and my mom who really, really pushed me and said, you need to make an appointment with your doctor. And I remember I called my doctor maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock on an afternoon, and she said, can you come in first thing tomorrow morning for us to meet? And I mean, I give her a lot of credit for that because that's, I think, the step that led me on the path to recovery. But yes, you're right that in general, we look at moms maybe the first 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and after that,
it's done.
Don't check in.
We are going to talk about that appointment. I'm going to venture to say life-changing appointment that you had with your doctor. We are talking to Lindsay Aggarwal, a mom of 2, a partner at Brian Cave, and a really remarkable woman who is using her own experience to lift up other parents, not just in her own firm, but in St. Louis. This is amazing. Her story is so powerful, and I know it's resonating with a lot of people. We'll be right back with more with Live with Laura. Welcome back to Live with Laura, and today it's Live with Laura and Lindsay, as I am joined by Lindsay Aggarwal, a local mom of 2, a partner at Brian Cave, and Lindsay's been walking us through the early days of her finding out that she is dealing with postpartum depression. We just left off with the fact that you are about to walk into your doctor's office 7 months after the birth of your second child.
Yeah, that's about right, yeah.
What do you remember about that appointment?
I remember thinking, honestly, that I didn't have the time to do it, that, I needed to be at work, or I needed to be taking care of my kids, or that I did not have time for this. But at that point, again, my husband and my mom had pushed so hard, thank goodness. And just sort of immediately upon talking to my doctor, she was just like, this is postpartum depression. And I think I probably said something along the lines of, Mia is 7 or 8 months, right? Like, I think of postpartum depression as within the first month. And, stereotypically not wanting to be around your baby, or, things like that. And I wouldn't have thought about it sort of in this context. And she sort of talked me through how, postpartum can really be up to a year, and maybe, even beyond that in terms of, hormonal changes and things like that. And at that point, she encouraged me to take a leave of absence if I could, and to just really focus on getting better in terms of taking medication and a referral to the perinatal behavioral health service. So did you take her recommendations seriously? I would say I took 2 out of 3 of them seriously, in that ultimately I took all 3. But I was willing to try the medication. I had some hesitancy or resistance to that, but I thought, maybe I'll just take it and I won't tell anyone. I was really willing to try to go through therapy and try to find that. But in terms of taking a leave from work, that felt way too hard. That felt like basically publicly admitting failure, or publicly admitting that I was weak. And so I think I was still thinking, I'll do these things, it will get better, I'll manage, everything will be okay. So when did you open up at work that this is not working? It was probably, honestly, within a week of that doctor's appointment, and it was essentially because I think things broke down far enough that I no longer could continue. It was not any sort of organized, I need to take time off of work. It was basically just, I can't come back tomorrow, and I cannot do this right now and also get better, and I need to focus on getting better. And very much to their credit, my law firm, Bryan Cave, from the beginning, everyone was extremely compassionate and made that process as easy or as seamless as it could be. And, told me to focus on myself and getting better.
And that is amazing. We just mentioned this off camera. I'm comfortable saying it on camera too. Do you think this experience, and not just at that law firm, but in any big business, would have been different 10, 15, 20 years ago?
I absolutely do. And I mean, maybe even 5 years ago, right? I think that people would not have felt comfortable even probably speaking up. And unfortunately, just, I think maybe the infrastructure wouldn't have been there to get them the support that they needed.
So they said, focus on you. And they actually meant it.
They meant it, yes. I remember, the head of litigation at that point saying, your career is a long career. You need to focus on taking care of yourself. And I remember he said, can I call you back in a month or two to check on how you're doing? Is that okay? Which I just thought was a really compassionate way to handle it. Mm-hmm. I think that now. I don't know at the time that I sort of had the mental wherewithal to think that, but
I'm so glad he mentioned it is a long career, because even when you were describing yourself in the early days, you went to Vanderbilt. You were always focused on what's next, mm-hmm. next. And I am similar to that in that I always live in the future of what am I doing now to set things up for the best version of me and my family 5 months, a year, 5 years down the road. What a beautiful way he spoke to you that, no, this is long, but you need to focus right now in the immediate space.
Yes.
So you took that time.
Yes.
What did that time look like?
Yeah, I think the first, so the time ended up being about 5 months. The first month or so was really focused on just healing. And really in those first couple of days, I didn't trust myself to drive. So my mom would come over, she'd drive me, we'd go to lunch. I remember one day we went to Rosalita's together, and I just kind of sat there and probably did not talk almost the whole time. And I only imagine, now, obviously being a mom, how difficult that must have been for my mom. But she was just there with what I needed, right? And in terms of things around the house, just taking care of things without my asking, doing the laundry, things like that, things that I was too embarrassed to have to ask for help, but I just could not do. So resting, taking care of myself, a lot of walks outside, just listening to podcasts, doing quite a lot of specialized therapy, and just really focused on getting better. I would say about maybe 2 months after I saw my doctor, I talked to her again, and I remember the doctor's note as well from then said, Lindsay is having more good days than bad. And that's, I think, the best way that I can describe it is kind of around that 2-month mark. Yeah, I began to feel better on more days than bad days.
Mm-hmm. And some of the therapy and treatment, I understand, was taking place at the Herman Center.
Yes.
Please tell me about what the Herman Center is for people who are not familiar.
Sure. So it is a fairly new, I think maybe 2022 or 2023, probably around the time I was seeking treatment was right around the time it was starting. The Perinatal Behavioral Health Service has been at Washington University longer than that. So the Herman Center is basically a multi-generational approach to child and family mental health services. So it focuses on kids 6 and under in terms of really keeping and making them mentally well. And there's a component of that that's the perinatal, because as you know, kids can't be well if their parents aren't well. Mm-hmm. So there's a component of that. There's a component working directly with kids who either have, trauma or have some sort of difficulty that they need services with. There's a very cool component. I just toured it earlier this week. There's a cool behavioral health where, the parent is working with the child, and behind a screen is the therapist who's kind of in the parent's ear telling them, why don't you try this strategy? So they can sort of be there in real time to see how it's going in terms of parenting and offer the parent strategies. So it's sort of a myriad of behavioral health services through WashU and St. Louis Children's Hospital, but I was seen in their perinatal behavioral health.
And you continued that through your 5-month leave?
I did, yes.
So when did you decide, and was there a turning point where you decided, I want to go back to work, I'm ready to go back to work?
Yes. In that first month or so, I wouldn't say I was thinking about work at all. Probably the 2 to 3 month period, it was, I am not going back to work. I don't know what I'm going to do, but that's too hard. I can't do it. That's too hard. I don't want to do it. And then I would say maybe around like the 4 to 5 month period, the best way I can probably describe it is I think I got annoyed, or maybe even a little bit angry that this experience had happened to me, because I felt like I was as smart as my male counterparts. I had worked as hard, and somehow, the system had still failed me in a way. So I think at that point I really started digging into a lot of just the research and data about, women in the corporate world, moms in particular, things that frankly I probably should have been paying a lot more attention to before, but had never really personally impacted me.
Right, because why would it? So I love that you say you started to get angry. And you're obviously such a driven person to get to where you are. So now you're saying, this isn't fair. Let's figure something out to not only help me, but to pay it forward to other people. So you call your boss, I'm guessing, and say, I'm ready to come back on this date. Do you tell him I want to come back as a litigator, or do you say I want to come back as a litigator and what?
Yes, it's more of the second. So I said, I'm ready to come back, but I think that we have, I don't know if I would have said issue, but there's something that we could be doing better here to support working parents, to support working moms in particular. There's a gap in that we have, and I freely admit, we have fantastic policies. We now have 20 weeks paid parental leave for everyone. That's great, right?
Yes, it is.
But there's still a gap, I think, in terms of, making sure that's reflected in the culture and supporting people throughout their entire journey. And very much to their credit, I think the firm recognized that and wanted to address that. And I say that, I think everyone knows our firm is far from alone in that. I mean, that's a system-wide issue, right? That's not even specific to the legal field. That's, again, corporate America. But they were really willing to take a chance on me. So what I specifically proposed was that I would come back and I would, I'd still be a partner. I'd practice law half the time. But in the other half of the time, I would develop and run a program to support our parent lawyers as they were going through their own parental leave transitions.
And how has that gone?
It has gone really, really well. And that's hard for me to say because I somewhat tend to downplay things. But I think it has gone very well. I think it's something that people really needed. And frankly, that's why it came about. It was something that I knew I needed and would have benefited from. So
what does this program look like?
So at the core of it is really working one-on-one with lawyers as they're preparing for or coming back from parental leave. It's a coaching program, so I meet with them one-on-one. It's confidential, and we just talk through really all kinds of things. It could be workload, either transitioning matters on, transitioning matters off. It can also be, far more personal. I mean, I think I alluded to earlier, kind of like the mental load piece, talking about have you thought about that at home? Are there things that you could be offloading and sort of making people realize that they shouldn't feel guilty about that, right? Just thinking through decisions like that. It can also be, which maybe I wasn't entirely prepared for, but I should have been given my own situation. It can be really, really personal, right? It can be these perinatal mental health issues. It can be, infertility or pregnancy loss, things like that. And I'm very happy that those people have someone that they can reach out to.
And I'm guessing this is also for the soon-to-be and the new dads.
It is, yes.
And I think that is beautiful because you've talked about how strong your husband is. Being a pediatric cardiologist, he definitely understands medicine. He also understands very high-stress situations.
Yes.
But I'm guessing to make sure he was strong for you, he probably internalized a lot. As all new dads do, and we know that men don't exactly share their feelings the same way that women do. I think that's really admirable that your program isn't just focused on the moms. It's also helping the dads too.
Yeah, and if I'm being entirely honest, I think when I first thought about this, I was focused on the mom piece. That was my experience. That was my piece. But I very quickly learned that I would say there's an equal number of dads in the program, and they are equally as invested, and they face very much their own set of challenges. Not to say one's better or worse or harder, but they face their own real set of challenges in terms of, again, I referenced that 20-week time period, and to their credit, we have a lot of men who take that full 20-week time, but, there's a culture in place in terms of what does that mean, right? And being supportive of that. So, yes, working with the men in the program has really opened my eyes to their issues.
So you started this program around 2024?
Yes, early 2024.
Okay. So it's now 2026.
Yeah.
As we sit here in March, 1 week from today is Working Moms Day.
Yes.
What are you doing to honor this day? What else have you created to help working moms out there?
So I'm really excited. So on Thursday, March 12th, National Working Moms Day, we're holding an event, Mamas Get to Work. So this is an event that I have been thinking about for a while and has sort of been percolating in the back of my mind. And I think maybe around October of this year, I just thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and try to do it. It is a luncheon. It's a fundraiser. It's an opportunity for all moms to come together and really be celebrated, get some services that are tailored towards them, get to hear from some fantastic St. Louis moms, and just sort of really create a community of support, I guess I'd say, and then simultaneously pay it forward, because I recognize how very privileged I was to have access to the services at the Herman Center. And I know that they cannot see everyone that calls them. I know that, and I'd love to help try to change that.
And tickets are still available?
Yes.
How do people get tickets?
So tickets are still available. The website is bit.ly/mamas314. Also, if you just put Mamas Get to Work into Instagram, Facebook, Google, hopefully you'll be able to find us. But it's a Give Butter page. You can purchase the tickets there. Or if you're not able to join us in person, there is a donation link there as well.
I want to know about the name, Mamas Get to Work. What's that about? Where did that come from?
Yes. So I had to give my husband a hard time because I heard him over the weekend telling his brother what it meant. And I was like, something is getting through about this. So Mamas Get to Work. I think of it really in two ways. So the first way is that sort of idea of like, moms, let's come together, let's roll up our sleeves, let's get to work, let's raise money for maternal mental health, right? The second piece of it is something that I think I heard on a podcast with Kristen Bell, and it was this idea that when she's away from her kids and she's working, she talks to them about how she gets to work. Like, she has this privilege of this job she loves. It is something that lights her up. And sure, it's hard to be away from them, but that's important to her as well. So, just really trying to be intentional with my own kids and not saying, oh, I have to go to work today, but saying, I get to work, right?
I knew I was going to like you from the moment we started emailing back and forth. That is something that whenever my husband says something, I have to do this, I say, no, you get to do this. And even some of our coworkers here, because even in the mundane things, the fact that we are physically and mentally capable of doing certain things, that is a gift, and we do get to do it. And when I was thinking about the name, I'm like, I bet it means both things. Get to work, but also we get to work. So yes, oh my gosh, I knew I liked you, girl.
Well, I have to say I love that, and I have not thought about it but when you were just saying that, I was thinking, so when I took my leave of absence and my doctor wrote on the disability form, my patient is unable to perform her job due to postpartum depression, when you said that, the perspective that I get to work, that I am able to now, that's really meaningful.
Well, you are doing amazing, and I'm just in awe of your openness, your honesty, and your vulnerability. And I know this is resonating with people who are listening right now, and people who are going to listen to this later. We're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to have more with Lindsay Aggarwal. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, total boss babe. If I were allowed to say other things, I would include bad something boss babe, but I'm not going to do that. We'll be right back with more with Live with Laura. We have a few more minutes together here on this Thursday as we kick off National Women's Month. So shout out to all the ladies watching, all the moms watching. I'm Laura Hediger, sitting down with Lindsay Aggarwal, a local mom of two who is a partner at Bryan Cave. Can I ask that question? I've always heard that. What does being a partner mean?
Sure. So let's see. At like a larger law firm such as mine, you're an associate for maybe 7 or 8 years, and then the next step is that you can be elected to the partnership, right? So as a partner, you're an owner of the firm. You get, a little bit of say. Now, at a large firm, it's maybe a little bit of say, right? But, you're involved a little more in the decision-making of the firm. And at that point, you have kind of your own client relationships and focus a little bit more on the business development side of it.
And you are a financial litigator.
Yes, financial services litigator. So I primarily represent broker-dealers in various disputes with either customers or other broker-dealers.
And are you doing this in front of a judge? You mentioned seeing your dad in the courtroom, and you
Yes.
loved that.
Yeah, I would say I'm rarely in traditional court, as you would understand it. I do a lot of arbitrations, so it's a similar overall process to kind of being in the courtroom, but they're typically held almost kind of actually in conference rooms, typically. So I do a lot of arbitration.
How many people work in your office?
Oh, in the St. Louis office of Bryan Cave, I want to say it's maybe between 400 to 500. I'm sure somebody will correct me, but I think internationally, lawyers, we probably have more somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,100.
1,100.
Yes.
Wow, very big.
Yes.
And then obviously St. Louis has one of the biggest footprints.
Yes.
So you are a lawyer by trade, but now you are getting into the crazy world of events with this awesome event that you have planned 1 week from today, Mamas Get to Work. It is taking place in Creve Coeur.
Yes. 800 North Lindbergh Boulevard, Creve Coeur.
Tickets are still available.
Yes.
Kind of a wonky website, but that's okay. One more time.
Yes, bit.ly/mamas314.
Perfect. It's called Mamas Get to Work. I understand you are going to have a panel of working moms.
Yes.
Who is on this panel?
Sure. So first we have Sarah Fensky, the executive editor of St. Louis Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah and I have known each other for a while. Her husband used to work at Bryan Cave with me. So she was one of the first people, honestly, I reached out to when I was started planning the event. And she was on board from the very beginning, which I am so grateful to her for. So she will be on the panel. We also have Kelly Stumpy, the car mom, very excited about. Alexis Sotos, who I know you all are very familiar with, content creator and podcaster, and then Ron K. Folletti, who is the founder of Karate House. And so Karate House is, I'd say it's trying to essentially recreate that village that so many of us are lacking, right? When they say it needs a village, but in actuality, we don't have a village. Karate House is bridging that gap and creating a community for postpartum moms.
And I'm guessing anyone is welcome, but the
Yes.
people who would get the most out of it is working moms.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to have anybody and everybody, supporters of moms, fantastic. A lot of the content is probably most tailored towards working moms.
And I envision this as just a moment to sit down next to another gal and you can just look at each other and say, I get it.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
One of my friends at the law firm, what something she said to me early on has really stuck with me. 4 of us got together for lunch, and she said, I already feel so much better about myself by knowing that 3 of the other women I respect so much are having the same struggles. And I sort of think of it as basically creating that space to just sort of breathe for a sigh of relief and be like, yeah, this is hard.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. We've talked about how we're living in this interesting time where the people at Bryan Cave said, okay, do this. If this is impacting you, it's going to be impacting other parents. I love that. Very progressive. But yet we're living in this time where social media, you open up Instagram or Facebook, TikTok, whatever your soup du jour is on that one, and you're just inundated with people who all make it look so easy.
Yes.
And I think, as probably someone who is a perfectionist, I think that makes it even harder, where you take a step back and think, well, if they can do it so easily, why can't I?
Yes, exactly. And part of something that I find really astounding after digging into this is that working moms today spend so much more time actively parenting our children than our moms and grandmothers did, regardless of whether they worked, and a lot of them didn't, right? But we spend so much more time, I think, actively parenting our kids, I think because of that phenomenon, right? Because we've seen on Instagram that someone created this magical art project, and we're like, ooh, I need to do that, as opposed to, I guess, just telling them to go play in the dirt.
But also because we know so much more. We're growing up, we both grew up in Southern Illinois. Playing in the dirt was fine. We never turned on the evening news and our parents were scared by what they were seeing of something terrible happening. So it is a really interesting time, which I think it's so special that you have recognized it and you are bringing this group of women together. And I envision women meeting each other where they never would have crossed paths and exchanging phone numbers and then setting up play dates. This is really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I'm very excited for kind of all the vendors that we're going to have there as well, because we do have, different providers of maternal mental health services. Then we have different places where, you can take the kids to play. We have different meal services. A lot of the vendors are vendors that I use in my own life that I have found just make it easier, right? And that I have tried to let go of the guilt of using and find that it just makes our lives easier.
And there is a charitable aspect in that a portion of the tickets will go back to the Herman Center.
Yes. All of the ticket proceeds, all of the funds raised there from, the silent auction, any donations we receive, it'll all go back to the Herman Center. And that was really important to me because I have always been so grateful that I was seen at the Herman Center. And since becoming more involved with this event and meeting with the Herman Center earlier this week, I would say I am even more grateful to have been given that opportunity because I think I have even more insight into how special that was.
We always say that hindsight is 20/20, and it truly is. If you could go back to your early days of going back to work after your daughter, what do you wish you could say to yourself then before you sought out help?
I wish that I could have told myself to be more vulnerable, to have been less worried about being perfect, and to have been more willing to ask for help and to have not seen that as a failure, because I talk about feeling really alone, but I know now that there are so many people that would have helped had they known something was going on. But again, coming back to from the outward appearances, I was fine. I didn't ask for help, and I really, really wish I had.
Your answer started with, you wish you would have been more vulnerable. And as I sit here across from you, you are so open and so vulnerable. So maybe you didn't have that advice then, but my gosh, you are living it out each and every day by doing this.
Well, thank you.
What do you wish you could tell yourself once you did start getting treatment and knowing that this would come out of taking that first step?
I wish I could just have told myself, you are going to get better and you're going to feel like yourself again, because I really doubted that. I felt like I was basically just like broken beyond repair and I was not going to ever feel like myself again. And I think that's, again, what I want moms who are struggling with that to know, that the treatments that we have, which also, by the way, have progressed since I had postpartum depression. I mean, there's even better medications in place now that work even faster. You can and will feel like yourself again. And I also think it's the opposite of selfish. I wasn't the person I wanted to be, but I also was not the mom I wanted to be to either of my kids. And so taking the steps to get better improved my relationship with them so much. So if you need to justify it as that, we always, I think, put our kids first. If you need to justify it that way, you're doing the best thing for them.
And what advice would you have for people on how to talk to new moms?
Yeah, I think just being there as much as you can and just reiterating as many times as you can that you're there if they need to talk about something, because I think it's really hard for everybody to open up and to say that things are hard. So I just think checking in on them as often as you can, just hey, how are you doing? Letting them come to you if they need something.
I'm sure after next Thursday, once the event is over, you're going to have a chance to breathe because planning an event is crazy, especially in the week before. So thank you for giving us so much of your time.
Thank you.
Once that event is over and you celebrate your son's 6th birthday coming up in April, what's next? To use one of your terms, what is next for you? What do you hope to continue to do?
In the immediate future, my son has told me that we can go wherever I want for dinner after the next week.
Ooh.
And so, I mean, I'm very excited about him treating me to dinner. Right?
Yes.
So that's going to be in the immediate future. I think after that, I'm really excited about the program that I'm running at Bryan Cave and figuring out sort of what's next in terms of, we've set up some peer groups that I think are really effective of different, I meet with everybody one-on-one, but I am not always the best fit in terms of, if there's a mom who had a NICU experience, I'd love to connect them with a mom who had a NICU experience. And so I think taking that sort of to the next level, maybe in terms of, broadening the peer groups and making it a more supportive across the firm.
And when we talk about workplace culture, you want to be somewhere where you do feel supported, and you want to be somewhere where other people just understand what's going on too. And from the firm's perspective, they put a lot of investment into their hires. They don't want to lose them either.
They do not, right. Yes, it's very important from retention, recruitment, yes.
Thank you for giving us so much of your time.
Thank you.
One final time, please throw out the website, and
Okay.
if they want to learn more in general about Mamas Get to Work.
Yes, so Mamas Get to Work. We're on Instagram, Facebook. If you find me on LinkedIn, you'll see it all over there. And then the website is bit.ly/mamas314.
Lindsay Aggarwal, it was a treat to get to know you. If you don't have plans next Thursday, join them in Creve Coeur for this really special luncheon. This has been another episode of Live with Laura. I'm Laura Hediger. Until next time, please keep listening, please keep learning, and please keep being live with Laura.